All right, Tristan Thomas here with CBS Sports national basketball reporter and 24/7 Sports, Isaac Trotter. Isaac, we're getting ready for the basketball season to fully get rolling. But first, I want to ask you about your job. I mean, what's it been like coming from small town Central Illinois, going to Blue Ridge, doing the whole thing at U of I as a student, and now you're on a national stage. I mean, what has that progression through the career been like for you?
It's cool. I grew up in like that area, like college basketball is everything. Like I grew up listening to Brian Barnhart, play by play. My radio was like dialed into it. My first memories were like Illinois in 2004-05 with D Brown, Darren Williams, Luther Head. I'm still irritated at Sean May. Like that was like my first real memories of college basketball. And I fell in love with it then. And, getting to go to Illinois and kind of just chase my professional dreams there and get all those reps has been awesome. And so it's awesome. It's a big part of what I do. Like I feel like my hometown and like how I covered high school sports back then, it's like exactly how I like to cover college basketball now. And it's really, really cool.
You didn't have any street cred with Illini fans. You sure do now, saying Sean May and bringing that name up. I mean, for you seeing this Illinois team, of course, the exhibition game, not a full roster either way for either of those teams. But what would you make of the Illini and kind of our first look at the end of the season?
A really unselfish team. I think that this is a group that I think that they're going to take better shots this year. And I just have a hard time seeing this offense not being one of the best units in college basketball. I think that they have a chance to be a top five offense in the country. I think there's a chance that this group can be the best offense in the Big Ten. And that's something that I think Brad Underwood has really focused on and really honed in on and building a team that can kind of beat you from a bunch of different ways. And they have a lot of pieces. I think that offensively you're going to see a transition group that scores more in transition this year than they have in the past, mixed in with like a little bit of like a slow tempo half court offense that really gives me a lot of optimism that they can find answers to the test against whoever they play. Obviously defense is going to be a huge talking point. We'll definitely get into that more, but offensively, if you can score at a high level, you can win a national title. Eight of the last straight national champions have had an elite offense. Illinois puts themselves in that barometer, and if they can just get the defense up to par, you're talking about a team that could be one of the tier one national title contenders in all of college basketball.
I know at certain times throughout the Underwood era, it's been the conversation of having a four man. Can you get a four man? Can you get someone to slot into that spot and help you out offensively? How much confidence did the first look at David Mirkovic give you that he can be that four man to stretch the floor and be a big versatile piece?
He's a big time player. You can just tell, like, he just gets it. He looks like he's played professional basketball for a while. I love the handle. I love the creativity of his playmaking, how he sees the floor, how he gets rid of it really quickly. He kind of plays hot potato with it. If he sees an opening, it's out of his hand in a hurry. So you just like the combination of power, like physicality, and then like the finesse part of his offensive game is really, really fun. I also like that Illinois doesn't need him to be a star. Benham Rickhouse is going to be able to play 22, 23 minutes a game for you. So if Mirkovic has it one night, you can kind of let him cook. If he doesn't have it or he's fouling too much, like we know freshmen will do, hey, Benham Rickhouse can come in and really handle the brunt of the labor there. So it's a good spot for him to be the best version of himself. And I think he's going to really help Illinois a lot. They've tried to like push him down a little bit of like the pecking order in the early going, but he just has played so well that I feel like he's going to earn more and more responsibility as the season progresses.
I mean, Illinois is kind of leading the way in that Europe to college basketball kind of movement. But nationally, do you think how do you see that progressing? I mean, we saw Igor Demin, other guys come in last year. Is that continuing to be a growing trend and something college coaches are excited about?
Yeah, it's not going to slow down anytime soon. I think we have over 70 international prospects in college basketball this year. Obviously, the Balkan Five that Illinois has is just a little bit different. So I expect Illinois to be a national storyline with the additions of Andrei Stojakovic and Tomislav Ivisic and Zvonimir Ivisic and Mirkovic and then Mihailo Petrovic. Like that's going to be a big time talking point for a lot of people. But it is one of those things where I'm curious to see how much Illinois continues the international pipeline because so many other schools are now trying to recruit it. I think Illinois has done a good job of being really invested in that side of the market where if they want a player, they're probably going to end up getting him. But I would not be surprised at all if they are able to pivot and bob and weave away from it to other areas to try to find values in the market because roster building in college basketball literally just it feels like it changes left and right. And Illinois has done a good job of being a little bit ahead of the curve in that regard.
You think it's a big of a challenge of the transition from the European game to the the American game in college as maybe some people maybe think it is?
I think it is a big transition. I think that's why like situation just is so important. Like what you're asking them to do. And I think Yegor Demon and Kasparas Yakashonis both had really, really good years, but it wasn't without their struggles because they had to really take on a big piece of the pie for BYU and Illinois, respectively. This year's group, especially at Illinois, so to speak, like the way they're able to infrastructure of setup of Boswell is really good, and Tomislav Ivisic is really good, and Stojakovic has played high major basketball for multiple years. I think that can make a Mirkovic, a Petrovic be the best versions of themselves because they don't have to come in and be the savior. They don't have to come in and give them the keys and hey, 30 minutes, you gotta like carry us every single night against the Big Ten. But no doubt, like there's going to be some international products that come over and are ready to play and be impactful pieces at the high level right away. But for the most part, I think this year the talent level is a little bit more like good role players, not necessarily like the superstars, the first round picks that KJ and Yegor Demon were.
You mentioned KJ and Petrovic and Mihailo kind of coming into that point guard position. How important do you think is the experience, the age he has in helping this team right away? Of course, getting cleared and now trying to get fully healthy. But how do you think the experience piece will help him in that transition and moving into a role at Illinois?
Yeah, he is not going to see stuff that he really hasn't seen before on the basketball floor. Like he's seen all the pick and roll coverages, everything that he needs. I love the energy he plays with. He plays so fast. He's an energizer bunny and he really pushes the ball in transition. I think that Petrovic specifically, I think will help Illinois' transition offense be really, really good when it wants to be. I think that there's a little bit of a learning curve coming in of like, hey, when do I score? That's going to be a consideration of like how much you can play him if he can't really score. But I think the pace that he plays with does help this offense, and it's just different than what the other pieces are. Like he is not like Kylan Boswell. He is not like Keaton Wagler. He adds a little bit of a different dynamic to it. And you're right. I mean, he's 23 going on 33. I mean, you catch him on the right time if he has the 5 o'clock shadow. It's like, is this dude 40? Like he looks the part of a veteran, and I think that's the type of expectation that Illinois has for them to give them a little bit of a settling force and a little bit of a change up for what this offense can be sometimes.
Well, you mentioned Keaton Wagler getting rave reviews from Kylan Boswell, Brad Underwood. Is this just like an Illinois hype thing, or is there some national kind of picking up on the things that Underwood and Boswell and others have said about him?
Yeah, anytime NBA scouts go to Illinois, the rumblings start to come out afterward that Wagler's pretty good and Wagler's better than what we think. So it's not just an Illinois hype machine. You're starting to see a little bit more from the NBA side of teams are interested in 6'6" guys who can pass, dribble, and shoot like Wagler can. I think his mentality is going to be the most important thing. And again, I go back to situation. Illinois doesn't need him to be the savior, but if he can be that connective piece that can just knock down open shots and play good defense and run the floor for you and run your offense and not make mistakes, be a calming influence on the floor when you have the ball in your hands, he can be a really impactful piece, similarly to how Wisconsin was with John Blackwell and honestly how Jace Richardson was for Michigan State last year.
When you see the two Ivisic guys, the question obviously comes up, hey, will these guys play together? Do you think that's something Illinois should try to do, or is it more of just a fan trying to get a cool lineup together?
It'd be cool to have 14 feet of Ivisic on the floor at one time, right? But I do think that Mirkovic's emergence doesn't make it a huge priority for the staff to get those two guys on the floor together. If it does, I think it would work just fine offensively. I'm really more worried about the defensive end of the floor, with just those guys aren't the most mobile laterally. But I think it'd be a situation if those two play. Illinois is probably playing zone defense. And I would keep an eye on that this year. I think that Brad Underwood's not been a guy that wants to play a lot of zone defense. I think it could be used sparingly at times this year. And if it does, that's a scenario where both of Ivisic boys could be on the floor at the same time because the rim protection with those two on the floor would be pretty real. They're enormous. They might not be the most laterally quick, but they have extremely long arms and they're huge.
Well, I'll mention the defensive side. What does progression look like for this group? Do you think the biggest challenges early? You mentioned some of the lateral mobility, but where does this group need to get to for Illinois to do what they want to this season?
Yeah, I think it really comes to Cam Crocker like finding ways to add change-ups to the mix. You just can't do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. Illinois has to do a better job of forcing offenses to think a little bit more. I think you could see them press and pressure the basketball for 94 feet. I think you'll see a little bit of zone. I think you'll see different coverages and pick and rolls. It's just mixing things up, adding change-ups to your arsenal, to use a baseball strategy, will help this defense in certain ways. And more often than not, like just not making breaking mistakes, I think will help this group. Because again, with how I talked about this offense being a top 5 unit potentially, if you can just get the defense to the 30th range nationally in defensive efficiency, I think Illinois could be at a chance to potentially make a deep run in March. The question really comes down to like last year's group. I felt like they did a really poor job of like limiting good shots early in the shot clock. Illinois' defense gave up early shots all the time. You're just getting free, clean looks whenever you wanted. This group has to find ways to make opposing offenses work for 22, 23, 24 seconds, because the longer those possessions go, that is like a win for the defense. And that's what Colgate's defenses were very good at doing under Crocker's leadership last year. If he brings that to Illinois, that's a game changer.
Maybe we talked about Illinois last year as kind of this big X factor, this high ceiling type team. What do you make of them in the current Big Ten, preseason standings, and kind of how do you see that conference playing out?
Yeah, I think this group will be more steady than the last group was. They're older. I think they take better shots. They make fewer mistakes. I think they'll be more steady. You won't see like the maybe as much of the high highs and then the oh my God, like are we the worst team in the country for this stretch here? And that's the game changer, I think, in this Big Ten, because the Big Ten is going to be the best conference in college basketball this year. It will pass the SEC. It's brought back the most talent. It's arguably gone into the portal and done the best work. They got, Yaxel Lendeborg at Michigan, Donovan Dent at UCLA, Bennett Certs at Iowa. Like the Big Ten has really, really crushed it. And these rosters look different. So from a national perspective, I think you could look at 13 Big Ten teams potentially making the NCAA tournament. And I think you're looking at 4 national title contenders as well. Purdue, Michigan, UCLA, and Illinois. Those 4 teams look a cut above the rest in a league that's really, really deep and really, really good.
Yeah, it's going to be tough for any team to come out on top in this league. Anything you want to wrap up with and mention with the Illini before we finish up here?
Yeah, I'm just fascinated to kind of see how it all coalesces. This is a team like I barely have talked about Andrei Stojakovic today, and he
Right.
could be a guy that could lead this team in scoring. And that's the fascinating part of how this group kind of comes together, because on paper, offense looks like, hey, you could do a lot of different things well offensively, but what are we great at? And I think that's something that like the staff is trying to work out and find. And if this group coalesces and Kylan Boswell becomes the best version of himself and Tomislav Ivisic becomes the best version of himself, I think Illinois could be the second best team of Brad Underwood's tenure.
Awesome. Thanks, Isaac. Appreciate the time.
Of course, thanks for having me.